Hey, it's Travel Gigolo, and this is a review of our epic trip through the Eastern Cape of South Africa. This is our first epic trip with our new old 4x4, which is a Toyota Land Cruiser 80 series, otherwise known as the Wild Dog. One of the great things about overlanding in South Africa is that the roads are really good in general, so you can get to a lot of places without a 4x4, although having the 4x4 gives you access to a few areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. This trip includes several national parks and nature reserves as well. If you want more detail on each of those, then have a look at the links below and have a look at all the episodes we did on each of those. So, road trip, and we're on the way. Nice to be out, beautiful summer day. Roads are nice and smooth, so it's going to be a good one. Starting out from Johannesburg, our first destination was in the Northern Cape, which is Mokala National Park. Mokala is about 8 kilometers from Kimberley, and it is South Africa's newest national park. Of all the spots we camped at on the journey, this is possibly my favorite. The campsites overlook a watering hole, and you have your own private view of that watering hole all the time, uninterrupted, and there's always wildlife coming there, so it's a really great spot to camp. The thing that struck me the most about Mokala was the variation in the landscape. In a single day driving through Mokala, you can go from rocky arid areas to really dense woodland and onto these vast open grass plains with lots of herbivores grazing. This is not a Big Five park, but there are a great variety of species, and it is really good for birding as well. Our next destination was the Karoo National Park, which is just outside of Beaufort West in the Western Cape. The Karoo National Park is quite arid, and the main attraction there is driving up the passes in this beautiful mountainous landscapes. The wildlife here is less prolific than many of the other parks that we visited. The campsites are very well managed and the facilities are quite impressive. If you're doing a long journey, then I definitely recommend the Karoo as a stopover. It's a really great spot. While you're there, you should definitely do the Klipspringer Pass. From the Karoo, we finally drive into the Eastern Cape on our way to Camdeboo National Park, which is our next destination. Without doubt, the big attraction at Camdeboo National Park is the Valley of Desolation. The views are absolutely epic, and this is definitely one place that you cannot possibly capture with a camera. You've got to see it with your own eyes to fully appreciate it. If you're going to see the Valley of Desolation, I recommend that you see it in the early morning as well as in the late afternoon to get the full appreciation for the different aspects of it. The park was really dry from a long drought when we were there, but we still got to see quite a bit of wildlife, and we had some really good birding as well. Also really enjoyed the campsites. They were very spacious and very nicely demarcated. There are a lot of 4x4 trails in the park, so if you want to get the full benefit of the park, it's good to have a 4x4, although you don't need one to visit most of the main areas of the park. When we do these epic trips, we try and do stuff that is off the beaten track and go to unique places as well. So on our way from Camdeboo to Mountain Zebra Park, we chose the route less travelled and drove to the quaint town of New Bethesda. So driving through these places with their own little character and their own history, and stopping over at these quaint little places and having a meal along the way is part of what makes a trip like this really special. So from the Karoo National Park, it was on to Mountain Zebra Park via the New Bethesda route, and what a fantastic experience we had at Mountain Zebra Park. The wildlife and mountain scenery was really fantastic, and we got to see some really unique species like a bat-eared fox, for example, and an aardwolf. The wildlife here was really great, and I wish we had had a few more days to spend at Mountain Zebra. It really was a great experience. You can do a lot of this park without a 4x4, but having a 4-wheel drive will give you access to parts of the park that you otherwise wouldn't see, and then you can really get the full experience of it. From Mountain Zebra, it is on to Addo Elephant Park, which by the way is a Big 7 park. It's the only of its kind in South Africa. We love camping off-grid, and so we camped at a really remote campsite called Mbubhu. Getting to Mbubhu and camping there is quite an experience on its own. This is a very secluded part of the park. It's away from the main areas, and the campsite is right on the banks of the Sundays River. So for a couple of days we were completely isolated, and we spent that time fishing on the river and just enjoying the wilderness. If you're into off-grid camping, then I definitely recommend Mbubhu. Addo is of course famous for its elephant population, but there really is a variety of wildlife there. If you want to see a lot of wildlife, then I recommend that you stick to the central area of the park, although there are some great places to visit outside of the central area in the Kucha area. So the main parts of the park are where a lot of the wildlife is, and if you're going to the Kucha area, then that's typically a 4x4 area, and that's more about being out in the wilderness with the mountains and so on, but you won't see as much wildlife. We didn't visit the coastal section of Addo Elephant Park, but we are definitely coming back. This is on the bucket list. We're going to do a nice long stay here and explore the park in its entirety. For our epic road trips, the journey is as of much importance as the destinations themselves. So a lot of planning goes into making sure that the routes that we take give us a full appreciation for the landscapes that we're going to traverse as we go through these various areas. One of the really great features of the Eastern Cape is all these mountainous regions, so we tried to build in as many mountain passes as we could into our trip. So this includes, for example, the Swartberg mountain pass as well as the numerous passes through the Baviaanskloof area. I think if you're going to do a road trip through the Eastern Cape, then you should definitely make the mountain passes part of your journey. We also really enjoy stopping at places that are peculiar and unusual. So if something catches your eye on the road, then stop, experience it and enjoy it. From Addo, we headed through to the Baviaanskloof Mega Reserve. And what an awesome area the Baviaanskloof is. If you're into mountains and valleys and mountain passes and these beautiful mountain scenes, then Baviaanskloof is definitely the place for you. We stayed at some really cool places here. Our first stop was at Markedart Caves, which is a set of caves that have been turned into self-catering accommodation. And within the provincial park, we stayed at Roy Hoek Campsite, which is also an off-grid campsite, and it's really great right next to a natural set of pools. Beautiful, beautiful spot. It's important to note that to get into the Provincial Nature Reserve, which is within the Greater Baviaans Mega Reserve, you must have a 4x4. Driving through the Provincial Nature Reserve was absolutely the highlight of this trip. The scenery is nothing short of absolutely amazing. Note that there are a number of river crossings to do in the Provincial Nature Reserve, and depending on what time of year it is, with a bit of clearance, and of course you must have a 4x4, you should easily get through all of those. The wildlife was also really great, but it is quite dense vegetation, so a lot of the time you can't really see that much wildlife, but it was still beautiful. In short, the Baviaanskloof Mega Reserve and the Provincial Nature Reserve in particular, I highly recommend. I think it's a fantastic experience if you enjoy this sort of area. From Baviaans, it was time to head back home, and to make the most of our journey, we had a couple of passes planned into there. So we started with the Swartberg Pass, which is a really fantastic pass, and I definitely recommend that you do that if you're in the Oudtshoorn area. From the Swartberg Pass, it was all the way down to Karoo Dam, and we used Karoo Dam as our stopover for a couple of days just to break the journey back to Joburg. Karoo Dam is a great destination on its own to do some camping and some fishing as well. We wouldn't be doing the Eastern Cape any justice if we didn't mention the coastline. Although we didn't go to the coastline this time, the Wild Coast is famous and there are some really great coastal areas within the Eastern Cape. We had the opportunity to stay in Jeffreys Bay for a couple of days earlier in the year, and it's a really fantastic place. The beaches are absolutely beautiful, and of course it's famous for its surfing as well as its beach fishing. So definitely would like to do the Wild Coast at some point in the future, and that is in the planning. Hogsback and the Amatole Mountains are another set of areas that you really should visit if you go to the Eastern Cape, and check out my episode on Hogsback. This is an extraordinary little town right in the Amatole Mountains with beautiful hikes, beautiful nature trails, and I really recommend it. So overall, this was a really fantastic trip and we really enjoyed it. I do feel like we have so much more of the Eastern Cape to do. We would really like to do the Wild Coast, and that's definitely in the planning, and also to see Addo Elephant Park in its entirety as well, and that will require quite a few days. But this was a really great trip, and I definitely recommend the Eastern Cape and going to see all these wonderful places and experiences that we had. If you found this informative, hit the like button, also subscribe, give us some feedback. It's always good to get feedback from you guys, and just listen to what you think about the videos and what your ideas are as well. So until the next epic trip, go everywhere, see everything, and have a great time. Remember, check the list below the screen if you want to get more detail on any of the places that we stayed and the places that we visited.